Hey guys, welcome back to 90 Feet From Home. This is going to be another statistics themed episode, and because we've covered all the basic statistics already, we're going to start getting into some weird ones. And I know we've talked about FIP versus XFIP, and I've talked about WOBA and WRC+, so you guys are kind of getting a hang for some of these ridiculous ones. I'm going to get into some really advanced ones now, and please don't worry if you don't really grasp these concepts, because I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I'm not a big stats head. I don't really lean into the really deep statistics, but I think it's important and I think it's valuable to know just what these particular phrases mean. So if you come across them in articles or people mention them, they don't kind of come right at you out of left field. Which is another episode, by the way. Mostly, I just want you guys to feel comfortable that if you see these phrases come up, you know what they stand for and kind of a rough idea of what they mean so that you don't really feel that confused. You don't need to know how to calculate them. You don't need to looking in depth into these statistics. Really, I just want you to be comfortable with the concepts of them. If you want to get more into them in detail, I really highly recommend looking up the Fangraphs Glossary, which has lists of everything in depth, how it was developed, how it was calculated, and how you can really use it. So for stuff like Sierra, which we'll talk about pretty soon, and BABIP, which I'm going to talk about today, don't worry if you come away from this going, I only kind of get the gist of that. The gist is all I want to give you. There are incredible sabermetrics and stats libraries online where you can get right into this. Beyond the Box Score is a great one. Fangraphs, Baseball Prospectus, which develop their own statistics on the regular, are just phenomenal resources if you really want to dive deep into this stuff. So just consider this a 101 primer on these, and as you get further into reading about baseball and if you want to get into stats stuff, know that the resources are there. And I'll actually put some links down below, especially in this video, the XFIP video, and the Sierra video, where those things are kind of really hard concepts to grasp. So as I mentioned, BABIP is what we're going to discuss today, BABIP, which means batting average on balls in play. At its most basic, this just looks at how often a non-home run ball falls for a hit. Now, this is actually a number that is reflected for both hitters and pitchers, and it looks a lot like ERA. So a hitter, of course, wants to have a high BABIP, and a pitcher wants to have a low BABIP. And this isn't the first time where similar stats were used for both the pitcher and the batter. If you look at something like basic batting average, which we've covered, there's a batter's batting average, which we know about, and then there's batting average against, which I may do an episode on, but because it's so basic, I might just leave it here. Batting average against is literally just that. It's the batting average of a pitcher's opponents. A pitcher's batting average against shows how well batters are doing against that particular pitcher. So in that instance, the lower number indicates a better pitcher. BABIP is a very similar statistic in that matter. If you're a batter, you want to have a high BABIP, and if you're a pitcher, you want to have a low BABIP. It's one of those advanced stats that really looks to predict a player's overall quality as they go forward. What BABIP does is it tells us the quality of that player, and also it tells us how much their performance might be related to both good luck or an opposing team's defense, or in the case of a pitcher, their own team's defense. So it's kind of interesting that it does look at the way luck impacts a player as much as skill. And luck is not something you can really measure, but what BABIP does is understand that high results in one season may not necessarily be reflective of a player's skill. And that focus on luck is why they remove home runs from the equation, because looking at hits that are not home runs seems to give a more complete picture of a player's overall ability. More often they're able to convert at-bats into hits, not necessarily just lucky home runs, the higher their quality as a player. So this stat measures only how often an in-play ball is converted into a hit. It excludes home runs, and it also excludes the factors that would keep a normal at-bat from becoming a hit, such as a catcher's interference, a hit by pitch, a walk, those sorts of things. But it adds one more element to that as well, by excluding sacrifice bunts. The idea here being is that if a manager directs a batter to hit a sacrifice bunt in the instance where they want to try and score a run, that shouldn't necessarily count against a batter's BABIP because it wasn't a decision they made going up to the plate and shouldn't kind of impact their hit success story. So BABIP tells us how frequently a batter is getting a hit or how frequently a pitcher is giving hits up. And the way Fangraphs puts it is that there's kind of three things that factor into what BABIP is and what it tells us. There's defense, there's luck, and there's talent. The defense aspect of it is kind of tough because for batters, they don't really have much say in the quality of defense on the opposing team. So if you're a good batter up against a team that has stellar defense, of course a bunch of the hits that you might otherwise get would be converted into catches. But in an example of something like the shift, where a team's defense might move over because they know that a particular batter tends to hit to one section of the field, a better quality batter would learn to hit against the shift and hit the ball where the defensive players aren't, whereas a less capable batter will continue to hit into that shift and get those ground outs or flyouts. So in that sense, it does tell us how a batter is able to counter a defense or not counter a defense, as the case might be. Now, defense will impact a pitcher's BABIP in a positive way because if a pitcher has a high quality defense behind them, they're going to give up fewer hits because they have those outfielders who are able to make those stops or those infielders who can convert ground balls into double plays. Now, luck, this one's kind of just all up to the baseball gods. And it's something you do have to factor in because luck does play a part in every player's success. Sometimes a ball that looks like it's going to get caught drops in. Sometimes that ground ball finds the perfect hole and heads to the outfield. Or sometimes something that looks like it's going to be a perfect hit just happens to fall directly into a waiting outfielder's glove. Luck works in both ways, both good and bad. So luck can work for or against a batter and for or against a pitcher. Because both types of luck are a factor, it does tend to kind of balance out over time. You're rarely going to find one player's career so impacted by good luck that it's going to change their BABIP in any kind of notable way over the long term. And then of course there's talent, and talent at its purest level is just a good hitter's gonna hit well. A good pitcher is going to throw more strikes, and those things will impact their BABIP over time. What BABIP does is gives us trends over a long term. So it's hard to look at a player's BABIP for one season and kind of really understand their entire story. However, BABIP over an entire career will tell us whether or not a player's hot season is more of a fluke than anything else. So average for BABIP across baseball is 300. If a player is hitting significantly better than 300, say they're at a 370 for that season, it's pretty easy to say that either bad defense or just good luck is giving that player a better season than what they might normally have if all their previous career seasons were at like a 310 or a 320. So rather than suddenly believing this guy's having a breakout superstar season, we can use BABIP to determine that other factors are probably kind of seeping in and helping him have a better year than he previously had. So it's not that suddenly he's more talented because his previous seasons of BABIP have kind of given us a level, that 310, 320 mark of where his true success story is. This is just a one-off season and probably shouldn't be used to determine his future success. BABIP is probably a little bit more useful looking at batters than it is looking at pitchers because obviously a batter has more control over their hits than a pitcher does because once a pitcher releases that ball, it is literally out of their hands. And a lot of their BABIP then rests on what the team's defense is capable of doing. So like I mentioned, luck is kind of the factor that balances out a lot over a long-term career. So when you're looking at BABIP over a player's career, you can kind of stop looking at luck as a factor in those numbers because, like I mentioned, good luck and bad luck have kind of balanced each other out at that point, and you're unlikely to be able to say, oh, that guy's just been lucky for 6 years if he has a 330 BABIP over that time frame. No, he's actually probably just a good player, and that's more reflective of his own talent and a mix of the defense that he's faced than any kind of luck, either good or bad. Because BABIP relies so heavily on factors like defense and luck, it is difficult to get a feel for it over a short period of time. Most experts on this suggest that you need at least 800 balls in play for a batter's BABIP to kind of level out, and for a pitcher, it's 2,000 balls in play. So it's kind of one of those long-term stats where you really have to let it balance out over time, which is why it's not a great metric for single seasons at a time, and one that you really want to look at over the course of a player's career. So that, in a nutshell, is BABIP, which is one of those more predictive measures rather than one of those in-season ones that we look at more often to see how a player is doing from week to week or month to month in a regular season. BABIP is something you really want to use to investigate a player's career as a whole rather than say how their May was doing in 2017. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If there are any more weirdo advanced statistics that you'd like a really simple primer on, please let me know. Leave a comment down below, or you can head over to my Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter pages. I'm at 90 feet from home on all of those. Also, please give this video a thumbs up if you like it. And if you wouldn't mind, hit that subscribe button down below. You can also hit the bell right next to it if you want to be notified every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday when a new episode goes live. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Bye!